So thank you for joining us today on another episode.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we try to do these episodes where we have it in English and Japanese.
Okay.
Because of course I'm better at English and Sake is better at Japanese. But fortunately we have you, where you're good at both, and so it's an honor to have you.
Okay at both.
Well, I'm sure you kind of mentioned it in the last episode with
Mhm.
Sakuya where you're more comfortable with speaking English.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can hear from your heart this time.
Yeah, for sure. I got you. I'm more
Sweet.
than happy to speak in any other language as well.
You know, but as I was watching, because when we film these podcasts, I was sitting over there and I was watching you.
Hmm.
You remind me of an influencer.
Really?
Guess which influencer you remind me of?
I have no clue.
Do you know Ray?
Rice gum? Oh, what?
Ray?
Ray? Really?
Yeah, I do. You remind
Yo,
me of Ray.
I fucking. Oh, can I say? I love Ray.
You remind me
I
of
actually
your
love
haircut,
Ray.
your haircut, and you're Chinese.
Dude, and I'm Chinese.
Yeah.
Wait, he's Taiwanese though.
Oh,
But,
okay.
but like I love Ray. Like I watch clips of him and
Yeah.
I'm like really happy of success.
You're like the Ray lookalike.
I'm
I
like
swear
the
you
way-
look like Ray.
I swear, I'm like 5 years older than this guy. He copied me. This guy copied me.
We're gonna clip this and it's gonna
Oh,
go viral, man.
I'm
That's
the Ray
funny.
lookalike.
But yeah, so about 2 years ago, there was an incident. I saw this on an article where a Japanese high school student who had some African genes in him.
Okay.
So he was a Japanese student, and basically during the graduation,
Right.
he was separated from his class because he had cornrows. And so that was the reason why they separated him. You know how in Japan, in the high school, they have rules with
yeah.
with hairstyle and stuff.
Right.
And because he had that African genetics, that's how his hair was kind of like. So he had a cornrows, and because of that, he was separated away from his classmates during graduation.
Right.
And so I'm sure there's probably many more examples of this kind of thing that goes on in Japan.
Right.
But being a Chinese background, raised in Japan, did you ever personally feel or experience any sort of discrimination or I guess racism in Japan, especially when you're in school?
Yeah, that's a great question. Me personally, I don't know if it was really racism per se, but I always felt like an outsider. And maybe it wasn't intentional on all the part of like the Japanese people that I went to school with. But, my name, like I'm going to school with people named like Toyotomi, like people that have very Japanese names like Yamanaka, like Tanaka, Nihara, like, and I'm just like Charlie, right? So I was always feeling like an outsider.
What was your last name?
Huang. So they call me Fanchari, right? So I was definitely like a bit of kind of outside of the norm when it came to that. But that just might be my situation. But I never really personally felt ostracized because I was Chinese or because of my name or that kind of thing. I can't speak for other Asian people or other non-Asian folks, because I think the experience might be different in their case, because I could kind of like camouflage, right? Like if I said I was Japanese, like my name was like Ryunosuke, like some people would believe me.
Yeah.
But if you're black, if you're African, if you're white, that's a clear kind of like you will stand out. So I can't speak for their cases. I had a half black, half Japanese friend that I was actually my closest friend. And this guy is like the most Japanese guy ever. I like rap music. I tried to put him onto rap music, but he just didn't like it. He just wanted to read his manga and watch his anime and play his PSP, right? So, yeah, and I heard his story of him growing up, and I heard a story where at a certain point they were like in, I think, grade 3, like his classmates were kind of ganging up on him, right? And kind of the thing is in Japan, bullying is quite common, like especially for like middle school students or high school students. So I don't know if it was specifically because of his race, but he told me essentially he like beat up all the kids. He was like physically a lot more dominant than others, and they all became like buddy after. And I never recalled like when I met him, like it was a bit after that happened, because I transferred schools quite a bit. He was always treated like a Japanese person. He was very, very Japanese. But yeah, if you want to put up his picture, this is what he looks like.
You gotta send me that picture later.
Yeah, I have so many funny stories of him. Like it's the funniest stuff. He's the most Japanese guy I've ever known. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because, I've heard many stories myself of how, they're like half Korean, half Japanese, but they still went through that stage where they were discriminated. Of course, I'm sure it's progressed significantly since when they were younger, and I'm
Yeah.
sure since when you were younger as well. So there may not be so much of that now.
Yeah.
But for sure before there was a lot. I mean, of course, you have to define what being racist is.
Yeah.
Because I think if we go by the definition, it's not definition, but based on what racism is in Canada, everything in Japan will be racist.
Yeah.
So recently, I've been loving this comedian. He's a black comedian. He's an African comedian.
Is it Anthony?
Anthony, yeah, Anthony.
I know
And this
Anthony.
guy is so funny.
Yeah.
He's so funny, but the jokes that they make on those comedian shows,
Yeah.
comedy shows, are crazy.
Yeah.
If that same joke were to happen in Canada,
Yeah.
it would
Like,
be bad.
His jokes are like using his like race as a joke.
Okay,
right?
it's
Yeah.
funny when he says it on his own.
Right.
But other people, say the
Saying
jokes
it,
to him.
or like to him, and
Yeah,
no, that's
yeah.
true. That's very true. I think like that's really applicable to like a lot of different other cases too. Like I think Japan does have. I heard back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was bad, right? Like,
Yeah.
Chinese, Korean, like if you're not towards. This is the interesting thing. Like in Asia, towards white folks, there was kind of like an idealization, like, oh, you have like Caucasian qualities, like you have big eyes, you want double eyelids, like those kind of things are regarded as beautiful. So that might be kind of a different standard when it comes to white folks, and that's something that's interesting too. But yeah, I think it's definitely like, I think the lens that people have here in the Western side of being politically correct and making sure that we don't kind of cross over boundaries is definitely not apparent in Japan, because they need like 20 more years to kind of catch up. But I feel like I think it's like, for me it's more so like just jokes, but I can't speak for the people that receive it that aren't Asian. So that's something that I would love to get to know more about. Like I've heard about my friend Hakeem, like the half black half Japanese friend.
Oh, his name was Hakeem?
His name's Hakeem. Yeah, his name's Hakeem. Funniest guy.
Yeah, but it's hard because, I mean, I was born and raised in Canada, but I still enjoy those kind of, like, that comedy aspect in Japan. Right? But then I can't enjoy that comedy in Canada.
Yeah.
Because then it would be considered racism.
Right.
Or discrimination.
Right. And I think, like, the Western definition, this might get too political, but the Western definition of, like, racism is, like, saying anything about somebody's race is racist.
Yeah.
Right? But how I see it, at least for myself, is like you look at a person differently because they're a certain race. And the distinction is that like Anthony is accepted in Japanese culture and he makes a great living being a comedian, and also kind of people poking jokes at him, not necessarily because they want to ostracize him and leave him out of the group or say that, oh, he's this, so he can't do this, or he's not smart. Like they're not doing that. That is my definition of racism. If you see a certain group of people being lower than the other because of their race per se and not necessarily individual qualities, that's what I think is racism.
Yeah, they're not discriminating him because he's
Exactly.
African or black. He's actually making a living out of that, right? So.
Exactly. And like with your friends, you're all racist. I'm sorry, but like you have to admit, like when you're really close with a friend, you're gonna call out some stereotypes in a fun way. Are you being racist?
That's how you grow. That's how you grow as friends.
Exactly. And I think that boundary is kind of hard to navigate, especially in the Western perspective of things. But yeah, I think Japan's just like, yeah, we don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite the difference.
It's pretty different. Same in, I would say, China too, but I can't speak too much on that for China because I've never really lived there. Yeah.
But Japanese humor is so funny sometimes. But it's very different than Canadian.
It is. It is. Like
the comedy is very different.
Japanese comedy is for like kids. Like owarai is for like, kids after school, they watch their favorite comedians. Canada is for adults, right? Like you go to a comedy show, it's like maybe 19 plus, that kind of thing. So I think there's a big distinction there. And the comedians in Japan are more like celebrity status, like in the Japanese circle at least, right?
That's true. Yeah, I guess the comedians here in North America, there are a few that are like Kevin Hart that are really up there,
right?
But you don't hear too many that are known to be celebrities.
Yeah.
You know them as comedians, but not necessarily as like celebrities.
Yeah, because in Japan, like the people that do owarai is like the Japanese comedians. They'll get commercial deals. They'll get like sometimes if they're really popular, they'll get into a movie like Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
So I see that more common in Japan. Not to say that that doesn't happen in America or Canada or in the Western culture, but I definitely see that, Japanese comedians being a bigger part of Japanese pop culture. Yeah.
That's great insight. I actually never really knew too much about it. I just enjoy their comedy shows.
No, like I can name off like most of the comedians that I watched from my childhood.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna be a throwback, but like Sugi-chan, like Wild Daro, like
I heard
Sugi-chan.
Wild Daro, but I don't know who Sugi-chan is.
Like Kanoshingo. That's all like Heisei Jidai, like probably like there's a bunch of new comedians now like that I don't even know of, but like I still they're ingrained in my memory. I would come home and just watch like what I.
Yeah, I only remember Anthony because
Anthony.
He's hard to forget.
He's hard to forget. See, you're making those jokes.
Now that you mentioned it like that. Yeah. Okay, we're kind of shifting gears here a little. It's a very separate topic. But you graduated university here.
Yep.
Congratulations, you graduated university.
Thank you, brother.
But the university lifestyle is different, university lifestyle, but the transition between university and entering the workforce.
Yeah.
How would you personally explain or describe your experience from going from university to now? Are you entering the workforce or?
Yeah, so I would say it's pretty bad. Like the job market right now is pretty not the best, I would say, and that's like a very lenient way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I was lucky enough to be able to have an internship right out of school. So I'm currently working that right now. But for the most part, once you graduate university, you kind of have to apply to jobs here. But the way that you stand out is different from Japan. In Japan, it's your credentials, what school you went to, what grade you got. But here, it's really about, the network as well as the amount of people and connections that you know. So being able to network in school or even outside of school through LinkedIn and doing coffee chats is what's going to make you stand out. And I think in Japan, it's very, very different. Because we were just talking about this earlier, but like you can't really send a cold message on LinkedIn to a person in Japan. They'll be like, "Yo, who are you?" Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have a coffee chat with you. Like I don't even know you, right? But here it's like it's very common, and you really need to know the proper people, and not necessarily like for me. Like when I networked, I didn't just want a job. I wasn't just like, "Hey, could you give me a referral?" I was genuinely interested in what these people did, to see if they're aligned with my career path as well. And also, I think you can always learn from somebody. But I think that's a major difference. In Japan, it's very structured. But here, it's kind of like you're left to the sharks and you kind of have to establish yourself on your own.
Yeah, you often hear that business phrase, "Let's go get coffee."
Yeah, let's go get coffee,
Yeah.
right? Oh, coffee chat. Oh, we don't even have coffee. This is over
Yeah,
Zoom.
yeah, yeah.
Right? So that kind of stuff happens too.
Now that you've, I guess, experienced the whole cycle,
Mm-hmm.
you've gone to school here, you've graduated university here, you've done co-ops and internships. What are some misconceptions of university in Canada? I mean, of course, you've only experienced one university, so it can't be applied to all universities.
Right.
But personally, for yourself, what do you think are some misconceptions of university in Canada?
That's a good question, actually. If I think about it, I would say I could base it off the difference. Like, for example, if you're a Japanese person wanting to move to Canada to do university, the main difference between Japan and Canada, Japan's universities extremely hard to get into, but easy to graduate. And I don't mean like, oh, it's a walk in the park, easy to graduate, but like compared to Canada, it's really easy to get in, right? Not like, walk cake, it's a birthday cake or anything, but it's easier to get in, but hard to graduate. And that's something that I think when it comes to Canadian universities is that there's so many different courses and so many different prereqs that you need to take. And it's also kind of more so self-choice. So you have to choose what kind of discipline, what courses, how long you want to finish. Whereas I am not too familiar with Japan's kind of university education systems, but I would assume it's way more structured. Like there's a lot of people in Canada that really take their time and spend, instead of like, for a 4-year degree, they'll take 6 years. Or maybe they'll take 5 years. Maybe they'll do, a year of exchange and that sort of thing. Whereas in Japan, I rarely hear people taking longer than 4 years or what was assigned originally to that. So I think the structure is quite different. So in Canada, I think the biggest expectation is that that structure might be there, but it's not. It's really very individualistic in that you have to set your own path.
So if there was someone, trying to get into Canadian university from Japan, what are some things you would recommend them to do in university while they're a student here in Canada do if they want to have a future here in Canada, after university? Because, you can finish university, but what happens after that?
Yeah.
Right? And so personally, you're currently in that stage of transitioning. So if you were to kind of talk to yourself when you were coming to university, what would you tell yourself?
First, I'd probably slap myself for not getting like as educated as I should have, but I would say this. I would say get involved and just try. Like for me, when I got into school, I was very like, okay, like business is something that I'm not really like sure I want to do, but like I was very unsure. So I kind of just like didn't go full in. I went like 50% in courses, and I really just was like, okay, I'm just going to chill and meet friends. But I think when you really, what I would really tell myself is that I would just go full in. So whether that's going to student clubs or getting involved in extracurriculars, like just be a part of something. Because for me, like I went to SFU, I don't live on campus, so only times I would be on school would be through classes. And it's really hard to make friends and get to know people through that. You can, which is completely possible. I made friends through classes as well. But it's really through those extracurricular activities and outside of school where you have that third space to be able to share those experiences in classes and that kind of thing is really important. And I would say just keep on trying. Like in Canada, like you really want to participate. And what I mean by that is like get close with your professor. Right? Go to their office hours. Put your hand up. Even if it's a stupid question, like you're paying 20 grand, 30 grand for a degree because, you started off dumb, right? So it's okay to ask dumb questions, right? If you don't ask dumb questions, you might be left not, clearing that out before the exam and it hurts your grades and whatnot. But I think it's just, ask every question that you want. Like if you find somebody that you want, mentorship or kind of have some more insights on career paths, that sort of thing, make use of the Career Resource Center. There's so many different resources. Like even if I say this and somebody that's, maybe in their first year of university, they might hear and say like, oh, I should do that. But they won't sometimes. I'm saying, please do it. I keep hitting the mic, but please do it. It's really important and you'll have more fun.
You kind of touched upon the job market earlier.
It's bad.
I saw a statistic online where it talked about how many, I think it was about, I can't remember the exact statistics, but it talked about how many Canadians that graduate university in Canada leave the country after. Do you think it's related to how difficult the job market is, or is there any other reason why people would leave Canada after graduating university?
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of factors. Like off the top of my head, I can think of the economic state, like for example, the cost of living. Given the average salary in Vancouver is not matching with the average cost of living, right? So there's obviously a dissonance between, whether or not you can live sustainably in Canada or in Vancouver per se. And then there's also the factor of like, oh shoot, I can't get a job, right? So there's a ton of talented and educated people that have skills or are ready to build skills, and they're faced with a job market that's, pretty brutal when it comes to letting certain people in and actually having positions open for new grads or people that are just coming out of school to build their experience.